Former WWE Chairman Vince McMahon, known as one of the most influential and polarizing figures in the world of professional wrestling, found himself in the middle of a serious car accident just days ago, an incident that occurred in the quiet Connecticut morning, long before the world would be rocked by the news of Hulk Hogan's sudden passing. The accident reportedly took place at around 9 a.m. last Thursday, and while no injuries were reported, the details paint a chaotic and troubling picture, one that intertwines personal misfortune with professional history and unexpected loss. Vince McMahon, now in his late 70s, was behind the wheel of his 2024 Bentley, a luxury vehicle symbolizing both his decades-long success and ongoing presence in the spotlight, when the crash occurred on Route 15 in Westport, Connecticut. According to an official police crash report, McMahon's car was traveling northbound when it forcefully rear-ended a 2023 BMW 430. The collision didn't stop there. The impact from the Bentley shoved the BMW forward, causing McMahon's car to also slam into the highway's median, crushing a section of the wooden beam guardrail that divides the roadway. But the situation didn't end with just two vehicles. The crash created a cascade effect that reached beyond the initial impact. Debris from the crash scattered into the southbound lane of the two-lane highway. At that moment, a Ford Fusion traveling southbound came into contact with the debris, adding a third vehicle into the chain reaction accident. All three vehicles were so heavily damaged they had to be towed away from the scene. Eyewitnesses reported that the incident temporarily brought traffic to a halt as law enforcement and emergency responders scrambled to clear the area and assess the extent of the wreckage. Thankfully, it was noted that all drivers involved were wearing their seatbelts at the time of the collision, which may have been the deciding factor in preventing injuries or fatalities. The severity of the crash was underscored by the fact that the airbags deployed in both the Bentley and the BMW, a clear indication of the brutal force behind the impact. Law enforcement officials later assessed the damage to the median barrier to be approximately 30 feet, another indicator of just how intense the collision was. Despite escaping physical harm, McMahon was not entirely free of consequences. Following the investigation, he was cited for reckless driving and for following too closely, a misdemeanor charge under Connecticut law. The crash report outlined how his actions contributed to the accident, particularly the unsafe following distance behind the BMW. These violations led to McMahon being issued a misdemeanor summons, which will require him to appear in court late next month. For someone as high profile as Vince McMahon, the court appearance is likely to stir even more public and media interest, not only because of the accident itself, but also because of the broader narrative that has long followed him, one of power, control, spectacle, and scandal. The irony of timing added a heavy emotional layer to the event. Just hours after the crash, McMahon issued a public statement mourning the loss of Hulk Hogan, one of the most iconic and beloved professional wrestlers in the history of WWE. Hogan's death was a seismic moment in the world of sports entertainment, and for McMahon, it was deeply personal. He had played a central role in launching and managing Hogan's meteoric rise. During the golden era of wrestling in the 1980s and 1990s, McMahon's carefully crafted message paid homage to the man who had become a household name not just in America but across the globe. Hulk Hogan was the greatest WWE superstar of all time, McMahon said Thursday, someone who was loved and admired around the world. He was a trailblazer, the first performer who transitioned from being a wrestling star into a global phenomenon. The tone of McMahon's statement conveyed a blend of pride and sorrow. Pride in having helped shape the legacy of someone as massive as Hogan, and sorrow over losing him at a time when so many of the old wrestling legends are now aging out of the spotlight or passing away. There's a certain poetic darkness in the fact that McMahon's accident occurred just hours before he spoke publicly about Hogan's passing. For decades, McMahon has stood at the center of WWE's universe, pulling the strings, shaping the narrative, and building global icons. Hulk Hogan was perhaps his greatest creation, a larger-than-life superhero figure, a man whose image defined an era of American pop culture. Hogan's charisma, his catchphrases, his unmatched presence in the ring, all were amplified under McMahon's promotional genius. Without Vince McMahon, there would have been no Hulkamania. Without Hulk Hogan, WWE might never have exploded into mainstream consciousness the way it did in the 80s. Now, as McMahon grapples with legal consequences stemming from the car crash, he's also forced to navigate an emotional minefield, saying goodbye to a man who was more than just an employee or a performer. Hogan was a symbol of an empire, a symbol of McMahon's vision, ambition, and ability to mold reality into entertainment. The timing of these events raises questions, or at least reflections, about mortality, legacy, and how even the most powerful among us are not immune to the vulnerabilities of life accidents, loss, and the unstoppable passage of time. As news of both the accident and Hogan's passing circulated online, fans took to social media to express their mixed feelings, some worried for McMahon's safety and health, others more cynical, highlighting the layers of controversy that have followed him in recent years. His name has been linked to numerous scandals, including investigations into company finances and allegations of misconduct. Yet, through it all, McMahon has remained a constant, his grip on the world of wrestling only loosening slightly with the emergence of newer leadership and family dynamics within WWE and its parent companies. Still, the image of McMahon behind the wheel of a luxury Bentley, involved in a car crash while the world prepares to say farewell to Hulk Hogan, is almost too symbolic to ignore. It represents a clash of past and present. The Bentley itself is a vessel of power and wealth. The crash, sudden, violent, and ultimately inconsequential in terms of injury, serves as a metaphor for the fragility of that power. Decades of dominance in a cutthroat industry, years of shaping wrestling into a global entertainment empire, and yet, in the blink of an eye, everything can come to a screeching halt on a roadside in Connecticut. Despite reaching out to McMahon's representatives for additional comment, there has been no official response at the time of this writing. That silence adds another layer of intrigue, leaving the public to speculate not only about the legal fallout from the crash but also about McMahon's state of mind following Hogan's death. Was he rushing somewhere that morning, distracted by the news he had just received or was about to confirm? Or was it simply a careless moment behind the wheel, made all the more haunting by what followed hours later? McMahon has never been one to offer vulnerability to the public. His image has long been one of controlled intensity, showmanship, and an almost theatrical defiance of consequence. But recent years have chipped away at that armor. From relinquishing formal control of WWE due to internal investigations, to health rumors, to legal woes both personal and professional, the image of Vince McMahon as an untouchable titan has begun to erode. Yet this very human moment, a car crash, a citation, the death of a longtime ally, brings into focus the reality that the architects of legend are mortal too. As the wrestling community comes to terms with the loss of Hulk Hogan, a man whose legacy is etched in the memories of generations, one can't help but wonder how McMahon is privately grieving. Publicly, he's a businessman making statements, a former executive offering condolences. But behind closed doors, is he reckoning with the sheer weight of it all? The death of a legend, the crashing of a car, and the knowledge that his empire, while still thriving, exists in a world where everything can change in a moment. Perhaps, for the first time in a long while, Vince McMahon is confronting the kind of vulnerability he once only scripted for others. It is a reminder that life doesn't follow a storyline. There are no predetermined outcomes, and even the most powerful figures can be jolted back into the reality that, in the end, we're all passengers on the same road, one that can twist, turn, or stop without warning.